Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Corrupt Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 1997 romantic comedy titled As Good As It Gets. This is definitely one of the more dominantly won romantic comedies probably in cinematic history. Maybe not the greatest, but it's pretty much well up there. This film ran for 2 hours and 19 minutes long. It is directed by James L. Brooks. It is produced by James L. Brooks, Bridget Johnson, and Christy Z. The script was also done by James L. Brooks and Mark Andrews. Andrews also wrote the story. The score was done by Hans Zimmer. The cinematography was done by John Bailey. And the editing was done by Richard Marks. And the stars of the movie, we have Oscar winners Jack Nicholson, Helen Hunt, Oscar nominee for Best Supporting Actor. That went to Greg Kinnear. Cuba Gooding Jr. is in it. He's not playing a big role, but he plays a very effective role here. Shirley Knight. We also have Jesse James. We have Skeet Ulrich. We have the voice of Lisa Simpson herself, Yeardley Smith. Let's see, we have Lupe Onteiveros. We have Harold Ramis, Lawrence Kasdan, and Brian Doyle Murray. Sadly, I really never had the chance to view it in the theaters. And I was definitely held back on it with the suspicion that it was going to be an overrated, formulaic, mushy romantic comedy which stars Jack Nicholson and Helen Hunt. Surprisingly, it definitely went beyond my expectations, that it totally deserved the hype that was praised upon by viewers and the Oscars, including the wins for Best Picture when it came out in 1997. And I thought the acting was truly what was the ingredient that made this film all the more successful. Yes, this is definitely an actor's acting type movie. It doesn't carry on cliche, it doesn't carry on, the conventional, mushy, boy meets girl type of thing. This is kind of more like a romantic comedy that also has a little blend of coming of age to it. And when it comes to coming of age things, many people think that it might relate to the more younger performers. But it actually goes to show you that even older people, especially like Jack Nicholson, can also use a bit of a wake up to reality call, even if he thinks that he's got life perfectly figured out. Yes, this is truly a really riveting movie, and I kind of highly recommend you all to see it. So the story goes a little bit of something like this. Jack Nicholson plays the cantankerous, people-hating, romantic author named Melvin Udall, who avoids human contact except insulting people. I mean, the guy is misogynistic, he's homophobic, he borderlines on racism. He just practically is virtually misanthropic. He will insult you and also feel good about it after, with no remorse, no sympathy, or no precautions. I mean, who could forget him walking down the streets? He avoids cracks on the sidewalks. He doesn't want to be touched. He doesn't want any anybody near him when he's walking. That just goes to show you just how much of an asshole he really is. He also seems to have a very routine agenda. And of course, to top that all off, he is germophobic. The only two people that seem to tolerate him is his gay neighbor, Simon, played by Greg Kinnear, who kind of also falls a little bit under the cliche that, he's an artist, he's a creative thinker. And of course, many people still somehow have this kind of negative feeling that, homosexuals are the more creative thinking people than the uber straight guy, which is totally and completely untrue. You could still be a straight guy, you could be this toxic masculine guy, and you can still find creativity in your psyche. But sure enough, Greg Kinnear kind of plays that kind of stereotype a bit in this movie. The only other person who also tolerates him is at an eatery where every waitress avoids this jerk except for a waitress who goes by the name of Carol Connolly, played by Helen Hunt, who can withstand his verbal abuse. Carol is a single mother who is raising her 10, 11-year-old son. He seems to be a very sick kid who is, I believe he's diagnosed with severe asthma and maybe even suffering from maybe some form of sleep apnea, which is quite a possibility. Anyhow, she's a neurotic waitress who has to deal with her 9-to-5 job while providing shelter and protection of her son, and also medical treatment. Of course, she can't give him full medical treatment because of waitress salary. I mean, she's not coming home with millions and millions of dollars. So, she's trying to struggle to make ends meet. But she also has a good heart. And she might be at times, neurotic. But I guess if anybody who has enough composure to put up with this jerk of a guy like Melvin Uttle, I guess it does take some kind of guts. I mean, this guy in one of the opening scenes, he sits at a particular table, and he also brings his own plastic utensils from home. Anyhow, there was this scene where he usually sits at a certain table just to avoid human contact, and all of a sudden you see these two Jewish couples sitting there, and he just practically spouts off some anti-Semitic racism towards them, especially like, you guys can't possibly have that big of an appetite, since knowing that your noses are long enough. Very funny. Yeah, the old stereotype that all Jews have big long noses. Right, funny. And and the thing is about this movie is that it might not sit well in today's PC culture, but 1997 was a different time period where some things were a little more lenient. Today wouldn't stand a chance. Back then, I guess we lived in an era when saying those kind of things were tolerant. Even though it's not tolerant, no. He had no reason or any right to say that, but I guess since it's Jack Nicholson, he could get away with it. So, if anybody who finds the joke, the anti-Semitic joke, sensitive about it, there should be no reason to be offended. Come on. It's just who his character was. He's just playing a role, and just leave it at that. His life definitely goes into a great transformation when Simon gets beaten up by some guy who was supposed to model naked for him for one of his paintings, but it turns out that this model was actually a thug for hire. And so, Simon gets the shit beaten out of him by these thugs, and I think they practically trash his apartment. And while he's convalescing from his injuries, Melvin is now forced to watch over Simon's dog, Verdell. I mean, in the early scenes, we have Melvin putting Verdell through a garbage chute, taking him out to the trash. And now all of a sudden, Melvin has this kind of change of heart when watching over Simon's dog, Verdell. And they look as if they were meant to be together. I mean, he even feeds him greasy bacon. And I mean, I don't mean bacon strips, I mean bacon! Sorry, I wanted to do the bacon strips dog. That's about as close as I could go. But yeah. And, it seems like they seem to have had a great connection towards each other. Even in spite of the fact that Melvin is germophobic, and most people who are germophobes would avoid dogs as much as possible. But here, Melvin and Verdell seem to have this great dynamic chemistry. Sometimes maybe the guy wasn't a misanthropic. Maybe the guy is just misunderstood. It just had a string of bad luck from the past that he just never fully recovered. That's the possibility. Now, we don't need to cram our brains with ideas of which way this story is going. Cranky old guy suddenly is progressively changing his ways around, becoming a new, maybe better person. So, we've seen this all many times before. We've seen that in such movies like The Christmas Carol, like Ebenezer Scrooge, or movies like Groundhog Day, St. Vincent, those kind of movies. Many movies have often seemed to go through that kind of that formula. Well, that's because it's just so simplistic. They are in some ways spoon-feeding us with, by-the-numbers details. That just depends on the characters interacting with each other in a natural way. The plot is very micro in terms of what this movie pans out. So although, you may think that this movie is trying to insult our intelligence, I don't want you to think that. Perish that thought. They're not trying to insult your intelligence. They're just telling you a very simple, straightforward story. And even though, it's definitely by the numbers, but what makes this movie unpredictable is the fact that the characters are almost acting like natural human beings. So they're not spoon-feeding us on how a character reacts or a character's interaction. This is a character-driven film that doesn't have too much reasoning to incorporate a complex plot of some sort. Just let the characters sort out their problems sort out the trials and tribulations that goes through their lifestyle and just let them do what they do best. Act. No questions asked. The plot definitely falls victim to weaving around in circles, but we do feel that there is very little direction to make this movie feel real. In other words, it's not trying to be forceful. But the strangeness that brings this film to our attention is that you get the impression that you want nothing more than to sit back and watch the film in its entirety, no matter how bizarre it is. There are some moments of surrealism in this movie, but it's not like, weirdness, like something that just comes from out of left field. As good as it gets, makes no apologies that the film is starving for a plot. But definitely survives on the performances and the character interactions from the script by both James L. Brooks, who also directed and produced the film, and his co-writer, Mark Andrews. From the misanthropic writer, the insecure waitress mother that has a child who is sick, to the gay, unfortunate artist, they are backed up nicely by a myriad of other relatable supporting characters. Yes, the big three, Jack Nicholson, Helen Hunt, and Greg Kinnear, they definitely do carry the cargo, and they do it all very, very brilliantly. But the thing of the matter is that what holds the leading characters together, we have to have some strong, powerful, supporting characters to help create the story and to make the story all the more effective. Not any of them are definitely blessed with perfection through their veins, but that's what keeps the film real. In addition to that, they don't offer a lot of special qualities about them, which is natural. We human beings, we're all very special in our own unique ways, in our own unique purposes. But the thing of the matter is, does any of us really actually stick out? No. Not necessarily. There might be some things that might go beyond one's expectations, but in the end, we are all unique. And I want everybody to stop and to think that way. Which, like I said, just because they don't have any special qualities, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because these are people that we meet every day in our lives. Some of them are people we could have met before with similar problems they're facing or have encountered before. The script injects that magical touch that makes their ordinary lives compelling, that you can't help but to sympathize with them. These are all relatable, easy to sympathize with characters. Even for the leading character, who is as unlikable as they come, there's still some aspects that he yearns for our sympathy. Yes, the ending is definitely gooey and by the numbers, but we can still overlook that and give praise to the script that Andrews delivers. The dialogue is delivered and done with a quirky, quick pace, and throughout it depends on humor. The jokes don't always come together, but it's still fun to listen in. Of course, engaging characters and humorous dialogue, it would definitely be null and void without an excellent cast, and the casting was done perfectly. Fortunately, the cast is as good as the title, as the film says it best. It's about as good as it gets. Jack Nicholson was wonderful in this film. In a film that definitely was more meant for maybe somebody like Bill Murray to star in it. I actually was thinking, was Bill Murray absent when this movie was released? Because I think that if it wasn't for Jack Nicholson to play this role, Bill Murray would have also fit the bill in playing a character sort of something like what Jack Nicholson had played here. Definitely, Jack Nicholson hits the right key as the cantankerous writer. He still oozed great intensity, but showed a great knack for comedy in one of his most hilarious films to date. I mean, this is Jack Nicholson. I mean, the guy spends most of his time seeming to be playing intense dramas, thrillers, and horror, but the guy also has some low-key, comical type moments, and he fits that bill perfectly. The dark humor he delivers is spot on and still has enough charm to make us feel for this jerk. I mean, for a guy who we shouldn't really like, who we should despise, he makes it just seem just purely natural here. We definitely want to see this guy change. And we want to root for him the whole way through his transition from a obnoxious jerk to at least a bit more of a likable guy. Maybe not like in a Saturine type of way, but a more effective transformation, a slow progression. You know, it doesn't have to like go right at it to become flat out sympathetic. No. But at least, you know, a little bit each time, and hope that once the credits come through, he becomes a better person. Helen Hunt is wonderful as the harried single mother, nurturing her asthmatic son, plus her warmth and caring nature is just the perfect contrast to Nicholson's character. But the chemistry between the two thespians were spot on. That was the primary reason why these two actually deserved the best actor and actress awards for their respective parts, because they were just really, really effective. And also, you know, Greg Kinnear, who was robbed of an Oscar, he was nominated for Best Actor in a Supporting Role. He adds the wonderful support as the gay painter Simon, who's equally charming as Jack and Helen. Shirley was shortchanged. Shirley kind of plays a little bit of a cliche, but he's not like effeminate in nature. He's not like flashy or flamboyant or wannabe grody type. No, not all homosexuals necessarily have to be, you know, men pretending to be women. They don't necessarily have to act effeminate. They don't have to, you know, talk with a lisp or anything like that. No, doesn't have to be that way. And, you know, he pulls it off very, very flawlessly. You know, another notable performance, somebody who did not win an Oscar, I would have to say hats off to Cuba Gooding Jr. too for his performance. The other thing is that his role was kind of underdeveloped. And I think he was actually more or less playing a filler character as opposed to his more effective characters in movies like Boys in the Hood, which was a real standout for him. Jerry Maguire, where he actually won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Here he's kind of playing more of a filler, underdeveloped character, but at least, he makes the most of his limited time. There are a few other ones too. Yeardley Smith, who plays, I think, Greg Kinnear's Simon's assistant, personal assistant. She was quite effective in her role. And let's see, Harold Ramis, he had a very small part as the doctor who was hired by Melvin to look after Carol's son. So, they really played off their roles very, very effectively as well. Even sometimes the smaller parts, though, the ones... they really, really were effective there, too. If there were any weaknesses in this movie, even though this is a wonderful film, in spite of its cliches and predictable nature, one of the biggest flaws about this movie was that it went on for way too fucking long. Okay, maybe I should not have sworn on this, but, a movie of this caliber, this was a romantic comedy. This was not some epical drama. This was not some war movie. This was not some swords and shields type of movie. Those movies are tolerant or lenient to go on to that extension. But this is a romantic comedy. Romantic comedies should not go on for over 2 hours. This movie went on for 2 hours and 19 minutes long. And it's not that I have a short attention span or anything like that, but most romantic comedies, if anything, a romantic comedy should run for at least between 90 minutes to 1 hour and 45 minutes at tops. This film is about 2 hours and 20 minutes long. And I think sometimes that kind of drained out a lot of my energy. But the script sure is good, the dialogue, the characters, and the performances definitely made up for the flaws. And I was glad I had a chance to watch this on DVD. I still say it's highly recommended. And if you're into romantic comedies, if you're into Jack Nicholson, this is definitely the movie for you. And I highly recommend you to see it. So if I was to give this score out of 10, I would give As Good As It Gets an 8. So I guess this ends my rider review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember, be kind, be courteous, and don't be rude. And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Rider saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.